Welcome everyone to this month's webinar, Disability and Care Partner Benefits and Tax Credits. My name is Donna Greening and I'm a Programs and Services Coordinator at Parkinson Canada. Before we begin, there are a few items I want to go over. From coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territories of Inuit, Métis, and First Nations peoples. To access closed captioning, click on the CC Live Transcript button and then click on Show Subtitle or Hide Subtitle. If you'd like to submit a question for our presenters, be sure to write it in the Q&A window. The chat window is there for you to say hello and talk amongst yourselves. Before we get started, we're going to share a video message from our President and CEO, Dr. Karen Lee.
Over 100,000 Canadians live with Parkinson's. We have one of the highest rates in the world. My name is Karen Lee. I'm the CEO of Parkinson Canada. My late grandfather lived with Parkinson's disease, and I know very well the importance of family and how they have to come together to support one another, but most importantly, the person living with Parkinson's. That is why I am dedicated and committed to ensuring Parkinson Canada continues to empower those living with Parkinson's. Each year, our programs and services reach over 10,000 people. We are a community. We are here not only for the person living with Parkinson's, but their family, friends, and their care network to ensure we all continue to thrive. Our advocacy efforts are focused on raising the voices of people affected by Parkinson's. Our Parkinson Advisory Council is made up of people affected by Parkinson's from across the country. They bring a diverse background and experience, but most importantly, they provide me and the organization with advice on topics that are important to them and their community. As a scientist, I know the importance of investing in bold and novel ideas that lead to breakthrough discoveries. At the same time, bringing researchers, clinicians, and people living with Parkinson's to collaborate to push the needle in our understanding of Parkinson's disease. We invest in the next generation of researchers and clinicians to ensure that we continuously understand the Parkinson's disease and also the care management of people affected by Parkinson's. When I'm in the community, I want people to know that Parkinson Canada is with them in every step of their journey with Parkinson's disease. People often ask, when is the right time to connect with Parkinson Canada? Is it when they have their first diagnosis? Is it when their symptoms get worse? Or is it when they need more information and resources? The answer is now. Researchers and clinicians are working tirelessly to find a cure. Meanwhile, every single day, 25 more Canadians are diagnosed with Parkinson's. Our goal is to empower people affected by Parkinson's to live well now.
Now let's get started. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Janet Flynn and David Ike from Prosper Canada. Janet Flynn is a Senior Program Officer in Prosper Canada's Program Delivery and Integration Department. She works with community partners to embed financial empowerment initiatives into their existing services. Janet has been closely involved in the development of the Benefits Wayfinder and Disability Benefits Compass. David Ike is a Senior Program Officer at Prosper Canada in the Program Delivery and Integration Department. David focuses on technology-enabled financial empowerment solutions, including the Benefit Wayfinder. Welcome, Janet and David.
Thank you very much, Donna. My colleague David will be putting up our slide presentation, and we thank so much for having us join you today to take you through the two important tools that will help you find benefits and help answer questions for you on those very important disability benefits. So, David, if you could bring up the presentation.
Can you see my slide?
Yeah, perfect. So we're ready
Awesome.
for the next slide. Thank you, David. So just to tell you a little bit about who Prosper Canada is, in case you're not familiar with us, we were founded in 1986, and we are dedicated to helping those who are living in poverty or those who have moderate incomes. And we want to ensure that all Canadians, regardless of their income, have access to financial programs, products, services, and advice that they need to build their financial well-being. So we have an exciting presentation, next slide please, for you today. We'll be taking you quickly through what our goals are for this session. And then both myself and David will take you through a live demonstration of the Benefit Wayfinder and the Disability Benefits Compass tools. So you're familiar with what they are, how you can use them for either yourselves or for those who you might be supporting get access to benefits. And we'll use a persona to walk through to show you how to use it and how user-friendly it is. We'll also let you know how you can share the tool. And at the very end, we'll take you through some benefits training that we have available through Prosper Canada that you might find helpful for yourselves or for those that you support. So for today, you're going to understand how you might be able to use these tools, how you can learn how to apply, next slide please, and get help and support someone else through that process. We also want to make sure that you are equipped to be able to use this tool and make sure that those who would benefit most from its information will be able to get to that information. So next we'll talk about why we created the Benefits Wayfinder and the Disability Compass tool. Next slide, David. First of all, most of you know that there's so many benefits out there available that a lot of people don't get. There's actually over $1 billion a year in benefits that go unclaimed each year, which is quite tragic. So we want to make sure that people become aware of this and know what kind of benefits they might be able to get and increase their incomes or decrease their expenses. And for those of you who have gone through any of the disability benefits or any of the other benefits for that matter, they can be quite complex. And so we serve to try to make this process a lot more easy to navigate and make it a little bit less traumatic for those who have to go through this process. And finally, frontline need. And by frontline, not necessarily just organizations that are supporting people with access to benefits, but also people who might be caregivers or family members, or even people themselves who would like to navigate and try to find these benefits for themselves. So next, we'll talk about the Benefits Wayfinder very briefly, because David will take you through and show you all the great key features of this tool online. But just to give you a really quick overview, it's a tool that was developed for Canadians, as we said, living on low and modest incomes, but really almost anybody can use it. It's not just restricted to that. And it's a very simple tool. It's been written in plain language. A lot of the government sites can be very complicated to navigate. So it's like a virtual guide. It makes it that much easier to navigate. And it has information on the benefits that you might be eligible to receive. In it, there's federal, provincial, and territorial government information and benefits. And we kind of consider it a one-stop resource. And there's 4 different ways that you can search for benefits, which make it much more user-friendly. And as mentioned, you can use it for the person themselves, if you're helping someone else, a family member, a caregiver, a care partner, or even if you are in an organization and you might be interested in using this with people that you are supporting. So before we get into the next one, we just want to proudly thank our sponsors who funded the creation of this tool, the TD Bank and the Maple Leaf Feed Opportunity. So next, we'll just get you set up for the demo that David's going to present and talk to you about the persona that we're going to take you through. And so next slide, we're going to meet Gary. So Gary lives in Ontario. He's 63 years of age and he's married, and his spouse acts as his care partner. He's living with Parkinson's, and he's the father of 2 adult children who are now on their own and not in the home. He's a citizen of Canada, and he was recently retired. His household income is under $60,000 per year, and he's up to date in filing his taxes. But he's wondering if he's receiving all of the benefits for which he may be eligible and perhaps can help him as he goes through life with his disability. So now I'm going to pass it over to David. He's going to bring up the Benefits Wayfinder tool and walk you through the tool. So over to you, David.
All right, thank you, Janet. So I'll be sharing the Benefit Wayfinder tool. And please, Janet, I'll ask you questions. So you'll be like Gray's
Yes, I'll act as Gary and when we get to the questionnaire portion.
tool, or the benefit Wayfinder is designed such that it will help Canadians, who are going through transitions in life, be able to have financial empowerment and support, irrespective of any situation they might find themselves. Such transitions that they can be going through is that someone could have just become recently a senior, or have just been retired, or has just become disabled. So these are situations that overwhelm a lot of Canadians. And unfortunately, like Janet said, the government has over $1 billion in benefits that are available to people. And from our research and findings, a lot of people are not aware of what they can get in terms of benefit and support from the Canadian government. So this site, or this tool, is designed such that it's a one-stop virtual tool where Canadians can, where you can support people or your individual self to find out what are the variety of benefits you can get. So there are this particular tool has about 4 different ways of searching for benefits. You can come to the homepage. There are different features, to enhance accessibility. So there are different tools and features. So you can come to the front to the homepage, and at the homepage you can see different situations that people can be in. Are you currently receiving benefits? Are you not receiving benefits? Right? Are you a newcomer? Do you need housing support? Are you indigenous? Did you just become a senior? Are you disabled or have disability? So these are starting points where people can click on and find out what benefits are available to them. So one also important thing is that prior to using the tool, you must first identify which province you're searching from, because that would help determine which federal and provincial or territorial benefits are available within your location, right? So we would say Gary is in Ontario, so we've selected Ontario for Gary. So like we said, there are about 4 ways of searching the tool. You can either start with the starting point. So the starting point gives you a list of anticipated circumstances or transition anybody can be going through. For instance, the person has just become a senior and you want to know what or a retired person, what benefits are available to you, or an indigenous service that's available to you, or the person has become disabled and needs support. If you click on it directly, it will give you, what benefits are, and the opportunities are available to the person within the federal and the provincial benefit schemes for that particular province. So it's a very beautiful tool with loads of features. So for accessibility, to have multiple ways of accessing this benefit. So this is just a direct way of looking at it. If you know exactly what you want, then there's also the questionnaire, which we'll be looking at in more details. This particular feature is a more tailored feature. It extracts the particular situation that the individual is in and gives you a tailored benefit. The good thing with the questionnaire is that it gives you a variety of benefits based on the information that is provided. So if you have multiple situations, maybe you have housing situation, and you also have a disability situation, and you have other situations, maybe you've just lost a job, or a combination of, so it will give you multiple kind of benefits, unlike when you use the starting point and you're able to identify just a particular thing. So the good thing with the questionnaire, it gives you a variety of benefits that you'll be available to, subject to the a number of information you give it. Then there's also the browse all benefits. So like the word is browse all benefits. You can, if you have a particular benefit in mind, you can either key it in here and search for it, or you can decide to browse through all the benefits that are available, that might be available to you in your particular province, right? So for today, we shall be using the personnel of Gray, and would use the questionnaire because the questionnaire is more detailed and we'll be able to extract as many benefits for Gray as much as possible. So right now, Janet will act as Gray's support, So Janet, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Thank you. So is Gray up to date with his taxes?
Yes, Gary's up to date on filing his taxes.
Okay, thank you. How old is Gray?
Gary is 63 years old.
Okay, between 63 and what is Gray's citizenship status in Canada?
Gary is a citizen of Canada.
Oh, sorry. Okay, citizen of Canada. Right. Is Gray working, or where is his income coming from?
Just recently retired.
Just recently retired. Okay, retired. Next. How much does Gray's household income come to?
His income is just under 60,000. So I guess the 55 to 65 range.
Thank you. Including Gray, how many people are in his household?
There's a total of 2. There's Gary and his spouse, who is his care partner.
Okay. So, does Gary or his, care for children under 18 years of age?
No, his children are now adults and they live on their own.
Oh, awesome. So is Gary renting or lives in his own home or live on social housing?
Gary owns his own home.
Owns his own home. Awesome. Okay. Is anyone pregnant in Gary's home?
No.
Okay. Of course, no. Yeah. Okay. So, what's the length of time Gary has spent in Canada since the age of 18?
More than 20 years.
More than 20 years. Thank you. So is Gary, his spouse, a Canadian veteran?
No.
Okay, no. So is Gary or his spouse, okay, does Gary or his spouse
yes, okay, his parents have passed away and they did live in Canada, so yes.
Okay, yes. So awesome. So we have 11 benefit recommendation for Gary. So the next thing would be go to our dashboard and see what this list of benefits are. So you see the tool has brought together, based on the information that Gary has put in, the tool has brought together different kind of benefits that is applicable to Gary. So the first one is the goods and goods, services and harmonized sales tax credits that's available to Gary. The seniors home property tax that's available to Gary. Ontario drugs benefits, that's so these are all benefits that are that Gary can apply for. So you can see at the introduction of the benefit page, the particular benefit page, let's use the Canadian pension plan for instance. It gives you an introduction of who is eligible. Then it tells you how easy it is to apply. It tells you whether you need to have filed tax, like for the Canadian pension plan, you need to a tax filing is required. If you click on here on the identification required, it tells you what identifications Gary will need to be able to access that benefit. Then the front page also tells you how much the minimum and the maximum Gary will be able to get from these benefits. Then also to be able to view the benefits subsequently, Gary or his supports can prioritize or deprioritize the benefit. So if, for instance, Gary thinks he'll be eligible for the Canadian pension plan, he can click high as that it should be high on the priority. So when Gary comes back subsequently, he can view it. Also, if Gary thinks he's already, or if Gary is already receiving this benefit, he can click on here and say benefit I'm already receiving, and that automatically will go and be housed here as a benefit that he's already receiving. And if for any reason Gary was to reintroduce that benefit to his list, he goes on here, click on it, and it will come back. Gary can go into the benefits itself. When you go into the benefit, there are 3 features that are very important. It gives you an introduction. It gives you the eligibility. What are the eligibility criteria for Gary to be able to get the benefit? What's the identification that Gary needs? And most importantly, how Gary needs to apply. And a very, very important thing is that each benefit has a link from our tool to the government site where Gary can apply. And then also, after Gary has selected the set of benefits he's interested in, Gary can either print them, print it out, and it will come out this way, or Gary can view them on a PDF, view them on a PDF, and so this is what the PDF looks like.
And so this is a companion tool to the benefits Wayfinder that David was showing you. And this was created as part of a pilot project in British Columbia with people living with the disabilities, and also 3 of our partners there who support people with disabilities get access to benefits. And because the benefits that are for disability specifically are so complex and so difficult, and what you'll see for our next speaker, people who help people or people with disabilities who've gone through this process have a lot of really good knowledge on tips and frequently asked questions that come up as they're going through the process, what challenges they've encountered, and what kind of resources were very helpful for them as they navigated getting the disability benefits. So we've tried to gather all of that for all provinces and territories, and have that included in this tool to have a nice one-stop shop similar to the Wayfinder, where you can go and find the 4 key disability benefits. And again, similar to the benefits Wayfinder, this is by province and territory. So if we use Ontario as the example, when you go to the tool for Ontario, you're going to see the Ontario Disability Support Program. So each province and territory will have its own unique disability assistance program. So we'll have that. And then everybody else will see all same 3 federal benefits, the key ones: the Canada Pension Plan Disability Benefit, the Disability Tax Credit, and the Registered Disability Savings Plan. If someone has all of these already, then they can go back to the Benefits Wayfinder and take a look at what other kind of disability benefits under that starting point that David showed you, the disability supports, what else their benefits might be there as well. So just very quickly to take you through, this is also available in English and French. It has had a full accessibility review and by an exterior accessibility partner. And so one of the features that I have in here is a dark mode, which was requested specifically by people living with a disability. Across the top, we have a glossary, which has all of the key terms that are found in all of these benefits that are in the tool to help it with definitions. It'll have resources that are available for every type of benefit that's in here. There's also a help feature you can get it at the bottom right on any screen, or you can just go to the top. And what this does is, even though you might go through this and you might encounter some problems as you go along, if you're helping someone, a family member or caregiver or care partner, or if you're doing it yourself, we do have here organizations that, depending on the benefit, you can go to ask for help. So you're never stuck, even if you're going through this yourself. We'll also have a feedback tab because this tool is still in pilot mode in British Columbia at the moment. So if you do have feedback, please feel free to click on there. So just going back here very quickly, it'll go through, and anytime you see a blue box, this is important information that someone should read before they proceed. We also have a caption video that was created by our team in British Columbia, which talks about the 3 benefits plus provincial. And there are also website instructions that'll take someone through it right off the bat if they're not sure how to approach going through the website. I'm going to use the disability tax credit very quickly to show you what the features are. So if you choose disability tax credit, you're going to have an introduction, again, a warning here of what you should do first before you proceed. And every benefit in this tool will have an introduction, the eligibility criteria, how to apply in steps. Very importantly, after you apply. A lot of the people we talked to said, I applied and then I never heard anything back and I wasn't sure if I was supposed to do something. And in here, it'll tell you what to do. It also tells you what to do if you're approved or if your application is denied. And it's shocking how many people, when they're denied, they think that's the end of the road, but it's actually only the beginning. And in here, we have steps for each of the benefits on what to do if you're denied. Throughout each step of the application process, there's frequently asked questions. And these are the things that the people with disabilities who've gone through this process and the people who have helped them go through the process have consolidated for us, and we've put them in at each step of the way. So, and also at the bottom here, very quickly, we have what's called resource tiles. And these are specific things that we were told need to be up front and center that are very important for people to know about as they go through the benefit. So I know I'm going to be running out of time, so I'm just going to very quickly show you the apply. You'll see that it's in steps and it's in a very user-friendly manner. Yes, we'll take you to the next step. No, and I'm not sure. We'll give you the information. And you can see here that in each step, we have consolidated all of the key frequently asked questions that people who have gone through this process before have encountered. If I go all the way to the end here, once you've finished, you're going to go to after your apply. It's going to tell you what to expect, how long you're going to have to wait. And then down below is the approval. And then importantly, what to do if you're denied. So in here, it'll tell you the options you have for this particular benefit if you're denied. And again, if you need help with your denial, to take a look at what went wrong and what added information might be needed, maybe the wording needs to be done, there's a link here to tell you how you can go get help for that. So that was very quick, and perhaps in a future webinar, we might be able to go into more details, but that is, in a nutshell, what the Compass is and what it can do for you. So I'll just stop sharing and pass it over to Donna.
Well, thank you so much, David and Janet, for the great information you shared. I think those tools are going to be amazing resources for people living with Parkinson's and their care partners. Now we're going to move on and hear from Frances Andrusiak. Frances is an independent community volunteer offering support and guidance to individuals and families around disability and care partner tax credits and benefits. Because many people don't realize they're eligible for these tax credits or find the process overwhelming, they may not apply for benefits to which they're clearly entitled. Frances's husband, Nick, had Parkinson's and a spinal cord injury. She was his care partner and manager for 20 years. Welcome, Frances.
Hello. It is such a pleasure to be here and to have this opportunity to contribute to this webinar. Wasn't that an interesting presentation? And there are so many resources. I know you will all find that very helpful to get you started if you haven't approached any of these benefits so far. I am going to focus in a bit and just take, as you saw, there were many possibilities there that may apply to you, but I'm going to focus in on the disability tax credit and give you an idea of how to go about applying. And then you will find using the tool very useful. So I hope to answer the question, am I eligible for the disability tax credit? I'm assuming that the people participating either have Parkinson's, are experiencing Parkinson's, or maybe are care partners. And you'll want to have some practical encouragement, and that's what I hope to bring, encouragement that you apply for this tax credit. Next slide. What is the disability tax credit? Well, first of all, applying for any one of the programs that Janet and David have outlined is a little like playing a board game or a card game. You have to know the rules, and sometimes that can feel a bit overwhelming, but you need to recognize that in a card game or a board game, you can't take the rules from one game and apply them to the other. You have to know what specifically applies to what you are dealing with. The disability tax credit is a tax credit on your income tax. It reduces the amount of income tax payable. It is not a salary or a salary replacement. The amount that you get on your income tax will depend on your income, because this is a non-refundable tax credit. It's not actually money. It's a credit that goes against the taxes you would otherwise have to pay. And you can't just put that on the right line in your income tax and get the benefit. You have to apply to the Canada Revenue Agency before you put the tax credit on your income tax. Next slide. Just to mention, I think we're mainly talking about adults here, but this disability tax credit does apply to children, and it is not age limited. Someone of any age who is experiencing some aspect of disability can apply for this tax credit. Next slide. So we're going to look a bit at the rules of the game. I call them rules. Generally, they're referred to as eligibility criteria, as most benefit programs like to call them. Next slide. Who is eligible for the disability tax credit? Well, if you were working and you had an illness or some issue that affected your ability to work, you might have an employer who offers a benefit plan from an insurance company. And you might think of that as just a disability plan, or you might be applying for the CPP, Canada Pension Plan disability benefit. And that one has to do with whether you can do the job that you were doing or is similar to one that you were doing but are no longer able to do because of certain factors. The disability tax credit has nothing to do with work. A person can be employed and be eligible for the disability tax credit. It has to do with functional aspects that are affecting somebody's daily living. And so the eligibility is based on whatever someone is dealing with on certain aspects of their daily living. For example, Parkinson's, arthritis, MS, dementia, mental health. The next slide. The list of functions that are in the category of eligibility are these, and we're going to talk about them briefly. These are not all of the functions of daily living. So again, looking at what are the criteria, whatever somebody's dealing with would have to fit into one of these categories. So the eligible list of functions are speaking, walking, eliminating, that's bowel and bladder, feeding, dressing, mental functions, life-sustaining therapy. Now, that is an unusual one where eligibility has to do with how much time somebody spends doing something. And one of the best examples are kidney dialysis, where the eligibility is not the fact that somebody is getting kidney dialysis, but the fact that they are having to spend so many hours. And I think the number of hours of minimum that you have to be spending in dialysis is 17 hours or something like that. Okay, next slide. Okay, let's just look at this from the point of view of Parkinson's and what kinds of functions Parkinson's typically affects in someone's daily life. It won't affect everybody at one time, but you will notice that there are some functions you might consider important to daily living, like bathing, dressing, grocery shopping, grass cutting, or snow clearing, that are not on the list. So you need to think when you apply, are there aspects of my daily living that fit into the category of these, into these eligibility categories? So speaking, Parkinson's can affect speech, the loudness of speech, the diction, and even struggling for words. So speaking is something that can be affected by Parkinson's. Walking, very definitely. Parkinson's is defined as a movement disorder. Now, not everybody who is experiencing Parkinson's has difficulty walking. I've met people who were able to walk miles a day, but watch them walk and you'll see differences in gait, in balance, maybe in fatigue, maybe have to sit down. Some people have difficulty with barriers and may experience freezing when they get to a doorway. These are all aspects of walking that, again, it may not be a dividing point of being able to walk or not walk, but these factors are taken into account when looking at whether somebody's walking is affected. Eliminating, I've been told by many people that one of the first symptoms that they had of Parkinson's was constipation. Feeding can become an issue. Whether it doesn't mean necessarily that somebody has to feed you with a spoon. It means that you may not be able to prepare appropriate foods, or that you may have some difficulty with swallowing and actually feeding yourself. Dressing, I will tell you that anybody who has difficulty walking usually has difficulty dressing. As somebody with arthritis, I can tell you that, yes, my dressing is affected. Try reaching down to your socks, or trying, if you're experiencing Parkinson's, you might have difficulty with zippers, with buttons, with putting on a jacket, with putting on boots, all those little tasks, daily tasks that slow you down. Now, mental functions, this can be a factor. It can be making decisions. It can involve a thinking process. It might involve dementia, but not necessarily. And mental health can be affected when we're faced with difficult challenges in our lives. So those are the main ones that are on the list in this program. And when we try to match them up with what many people who are experiencing Parkinson's are seeing, that's the list. You may not be experiencing all of these at the moment, but you probably, if you have are experiencing Parkinson's, you will be having some of those. On to the next slide. Another part of the criteria for eligibility is that the issue has or is expected to last at least a year. So if I break my leg and it heals pretty well, I'm not eligible for this disability tax credit. It must last for a year. The other issue is how severe the effects are. And this is where many people talk themselves out of applying for this disability tax credit. They think in terms of somebody using a wheelchair who can't walk at all, or somebody who can't communicate at all. To be eligible, one does not necessarily have to be unable to do one of those functional tasks. what the program focuses on is that the focus is on how long it takes to do something. So if you're walking, you might be walking fine, but compared to what a person would usually do, does it take longer? Is it affected by, in case of Parkinson's, by balance, by fatigue, by gait, poor gait? So I encourage you not to think of whether you can or can't do something, but about the criteria that are in the program about how severe the effects are. Now, in the application, and a long time ago, you used to have to be unable to do one of those major functions. And quite a few years ago, thank goodness, they changed the program so that if you have less severe effect on 2 or more of the functional categories on the list, you can combine them as a lesser impact on your life, but those 2 things might make you eligible for the disability tax credit. Okay. Just to review that, the issue is expected to last for at least a year. It depends how severe the effects are and how frequently the effects occur. Well, Parkinson's doesn't take a holiday. You all know that. So the effects occur all the time once they've begun for you. Now on to the next slide. Often when I talk to people and we're getting to know each other and I ask questions about what is happening to the person at the time, one of the first things they'll tell me is the date of diagnosis. But we know Parkinson's has usually been present for several years before diagnosis. And I usually then say, okay, that's really interesting. You were diagnosed in such and such a year. Now we're going to put that information off the table, because the Canada Revenue Agency, to whom you are applying for the disability tax credit, doesn't really care what the date of diagnosis is. What is more significant is when did the symptoms begun. The disability tax credit program, in my experience, has been willing to accept as the beginning of eligibility for the disability tax credit as the beginning of symptoms. Now, we're going to get into how do we put this information on the application when we might not have records. I mean, there wasn't somebody necessarily there with you when you first noticed the beginnings of what you're experiencing. I remember one woman told me she remembered exactly when she first noticed it. She was on a cruise. And another man who said I could no longer, he could no longer cut the lawn on a slight slope because he couldn't manage that balance. Okay, so you're going to be applying to the disability tax credit. And let's go on to the next slide. And the application is done on a form T2201 that you can print off on the internet, or you can ask somebody to get you a copy of it. Don't be intimidated by it. It's 16 pages at this point, mainly to help the physician or healthcare professional that you are asking to complete it. It's notes to them. Now, the application, all you have to do is fill out page 1 and 2. Then you take it to the healthcare professional and ask them to complete the rest. Now, that's the tricky part. Excuse me. In this process, and we've talked about the eligibility, and I'm sure that I want to leave you with the impression that if you are dealing with Parkinson's, you are eligible. But you need to take this into a doctor or a nurse practitioner. There are a couple of an occupational therapist or physiotherapist can fill out parts of the application depending on what the disability is. But my experience has been that if you go into that doctor's office, so we'll just talk about doctors, and say, I need this application filled out, the chances are 50-50 that the application will fail, even though you are clearly eligible. So first of all, you are the person who's deciding to apply. The health care professional completes the application, but it is Revenue Canada agency who makes the decision. And so to make the application work, to be effectively received by Canada Revenue Agency, and if you'll recall, I mentioned that nobody was probably taking notes in your doctor's office when you experienced the first symptoms of Parkinson's. It is going to be your responsibility to gather that information and give it to your doctor. So that's what makes for a good application, is giving the doctor as much information related to that functional list as possible, so that the doctor can do a good application. You need to gather the information from yourself, from your own notes, from talking to other people, your partner. I've had people say, oh yes, my sister-in-law said, you know, we were at so-and-so's birthday party and I noticed you were having difficulty with this or that. All of that information needs to go to your doctor. Write it on a napkin, write it on a computer, but make sure your doctor gets that information. And be compassionate about your doctor. Just think of the doctor who's had a room full, or an office full of people all day, and is hungry and tired at 5 or 6 o'clock, and is now supposed to fill out this form, or maybe is tackling it 2 weeks later and can't quite remember what you said. So my encouragement is that you write this up following the list of eligibility functions, and leave out other information. Don't focus on the date of diagnosis, and hand that to the doctor. Go make an appointment only for that discussion. Give the doctor, speak to a couple of points and then give the doctor the handout. You will be helping the doctor a great deal. Okay, on to the next slide. Okay, CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency, is the one who makes the decision. Your doctor does not make the decision about whether you're eligible or not. And the CRA will make one of 4 decisions. They may say no. They may give you a temporary eligibility, or the third category is the one I call, don't call us, we'll call you, or permanent. My experience is with Parkinson's that the decision is permanent. And what do you do? That was a question that's been asked. What do you do if the answer is no? You reapply. You can reapply many times. My husband applied 3 times. They kept moving the goalposts. You can apply even before you get to a request for a reconsideration. There's a better word for it. I just can't think of it at the moment. So the next slide. So just to review, how to avoid no: gather detailed information relevant to the application, write down information from your situation following the outline of the application, provide examples of how Parkinson's affects your daily life in the list of daily living criteria, provide information of when the symptoms began, what they were, and what year that was, because each page that is involved, that outlines one of the functional criteria, has a space for the doctor to put the year. And if you can say those symptoms began in 2015, and the doctor puts down 2015, your eligibility will begin in 2015, and Revenue Canada will review and reassess your previous income taxes back to 2015, and then send you the money that you were owed if you knew that you were eligible from that time. You need to be really clear about those dates. they are very valuable. And as I said, the doctor may not have those in the file, but the doctor understands, or should understand, that Parkinson's didn't happen yesterday, and will know that when you said it was 2015, that that's likely accurate. Okay, the next slide. Nearly finished here. Last words. I encourage you to avoid commercial companies offering to help you with the application for a fee or percentage of your refund. I've had people come to me that have paid large sums of money for what is free information, and I always find that distressing. Now, between our discussion here and Prospects Canada's access tools, you should be able to please avoid paying somebody to give you this information. Okay, on to the next slide. That was a very quick review of the federal disability tax credit. I'm just going to touch on, and I know a lot of you have an interest in the any benefits for caregivers. Manitoba has a unique program called the Manitoba Primary Caregiver Tax Credit. It is a refundable tax credit compared to the other that is non-refundable. That means that it's an actual payment of money to a caregiver of $1,400 per year. It is not, okay, I'm just going to rephrase that. The person that is receiving the care can be an adult or a child. This is not only for seniors. And this program actually recognizes the care that somebody is giving. Now, I'm going to talk to you a bit about the federal caregiver tax credit called the Canada Federal Caregiver Tax Credit. It is a different program, and it is one that doesn't centrally acknowledge the care that somebody is giving to somebody else. It is actually focused on the financial care that somebody may be providing to somebody else. So to be eligible for the Canada Federal Caregiver Tax Credit, the person receiving the care has to have a very low income. So it's not available to everyone. And each province has a different threshold as to what the person who's receiving the care, what their income would be as to when their caregiver might be eligible for a benefit on the caregivers. And people are still using the caregiver word. We are now talking about care partners, but as you're looking at these programs, they will still be called caregiving. So in the federal program, the person being cared for must fit into a specific category of relationship to the caregiver, be living with the caregiver, and this matter of the threshold of income is what makes somebody eligible or not. I think we have one more slide. Okay, a brief comment on medical expenses. Usually we think of medical expenses as medications, maybe physiotherapy, glasses, and private health insurance expenses. The list of medical expenses is much longer, and on the internet you'll find various lists that are more detailed than the one that you bring up first. So just as an example, air conditioning, driveways and sidewalks, renovations for mobility and accessibility can be some of this long list of medical expenses that can be, again, this is a tax credit. It's not a refund of your medical expenses. You might be able to apply to your private health plan for covering some of those expenses. So, but this list, this federal list of tax credits, medical expenses that are tax credits, is something you should look into. in detail. There are also tax credits for attended care and nursing home and assisted living care, living home care fees. Again, these don't cover all of the expenses, but they can help. And as the last word there is no one central place that will provide you with a salary or a grant or a pot of something that will pay for all of the things you're going through. So you kind of have to look in a lot of places. And so websites like Prosper are very, very useful. Yes, Donna, I think that's it for me.
Well, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Frances. That was a lot of really great information. In the interest of time, I know that we've already gone over time for the webinar. Rest assured that the questions that have been submitted, they're going to be reviewed by the panelists. And when we send out our follow-up email, they will be answered. But we're just going to ask a couple now live, and then the rest will be included in the email. This question is for Janet and David. How often is the information on the Wayfinder updated?
Yes. So our team is constantly looking out for the new benefits, and we aim to update those benefits as they are changed or tweaked by the federal or the provincial government. Then for the tool itself, we normally do an update of the tool. We have an overview of all the benefits at least twice every year. So we aim to be up to date with the benefits and the information contained in the tools. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Frances, this is a question for you. Is an official diagnosis needed to be able to apply for the benefits and to also apply for the different additional programs like Parkinson's exercise classes, choirs, voice lessons, etc.?
This was an interesting question. And I may have been misreading it, but I think the question was, does the person with Parkinson's need to be officially declared disabled? And that gave me the impression that somebody is thinking that there is some central body or whatever that gives us a label. And that's not so. As I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought. That you have to know what the program is talking about. So the disability tax credit doesn't carry on to, if you receive that benefit, it doesn't label you as disabled for other programs. Other programs like the CPP disability will give you an approval, not necessarily a label of disability. I hope that helps. So you got to know what the program says. This question went on to ask whether the person had to be declared disabled to claim health costs for Parkinson's, such as exercise classes, choirs, and voice lessons. First of all, again, that disability tax credit doesn't provide you with the label that you can use for other programs. Sometimes things do interact slightly, but not on the whole. But the question about exercise classes, choirs, and voice lessons, as far as I know, none of those things are on the list of medical expenses. Unless those, say, the voice lessons are being provided by an occupational therapist or physiotherapist, then they might be considered a medical expense. Or if the exercise classes are being conducted by one of those health professionals. But as such, I haven't come across anything that would allow you to claim those specific items as medical expenses.
Okay, and it's also been asked, if a partner receives the disability tax credit, does that automatically qualify their care partner or caregiver to qualify for the care partner credits and benefits?
That's, yeah, that's part of what I was including in the first question. No, the disability tax credit doesn't entitle the caregiver um, to qualify for any of the programs. In Manitoba, with this unique program, the application is completely separate. The person doesn't even have to, that the person being cared for, now the caregiver is the one that gets that amount, but the person being cared for doesn't have to have been approved for the disability tax credit at all. They're completely separate.
Okay,
Yes, and the federal caregiver tax credit, they do interact. There are some things that that the disability tax credit or a letter or a note from the doctor are needed for, but generally those things are separate. One doesn't get you into another program.
okay, great. Last question for David or Janet to answer on the Wayfinder. If someone has multiple factors that could potentially qualify them to start that journey of answering the questions. For instance, if they're an Indigenous senior with Parkinson's, where's the best way for them to start looking for the benefits?
Yeah, thanks, Donna. I think always the questionnaire is always the ideal one to start if the person doesn't mind sharing that information, if they're working with someone to go through the questionnaire, because it will give you the most customized listing of benefits that apply to all those different scenarios about yourself. But if they don't feel comfortable, then the next best thing would be look at what is probably the most recent life transition or the most recent issue that the person is dealing with. So for example, if it's an Indigenous senior with Parkinson's, if they don't have any disability benefits, they might want to just go under the starting points that David had shown and select disability support, and it'll show all of the federal and provincial disability related. Or if they do already have all those and they say, I've already got all the disability supports I need, but is there anything specifically to being a senior? Then they can go to the starting point for seniors and see, is there anything in addition other than what I'm already receiving that perhaps I might be eligible for? And the same with Indigenous as well. So I really say questionnaire first, and then secondary, whatever the most important starting point would be for that person.
Okay, great. Well, thanks to everyone for asking such great questions and our presenters for such thoughtful responses. I know there were a lot of questions asked that we have not been able to get to, but when we send out our email, we're going to send out those questions including the answers from our panelists. Of course, a very special thank you to Janet Flynn, David Ike, and Frances Andrusiak for joining us today to discuss the tax credits and benefits. In about a week or two, we'll be sending you that follow-up email with a link to a recording of the webinar and all of the resources mentioned here today. We're also going to send you information on how to contact Parkinson Canada's Information and Referral Associates who can answer your questions and provide you with resources. Next month's webinar, Adventure is Still Possible with Parkinson's, takes place on Wednesday, February 15th. We'll hear from members of the Parkinson's community about how they incorporate adventure into their lives while keeping in mind their Parkinson's symptoms. We'll also be joined by an accessible travel expert who'll discuss accessible transportation resources and lodgings, air travel, affordable close-to-home adventures, dealing with off periods and fatigue, and much more. So watch your email inboxes for more and a registration link. On behalf of everyone at Parkinson Canada, I'd like to thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. See you next month.